Captain Rowan Vale stood at the airlock of the starship Dauntless, his boots echoing softly on the polished metal deck. Before him lay the planet Elisara, a globe of pale blue oceans and crystalline land masses that shimmered under two suns. Rowan had been sent as Earth's ambassador, charged with one goal: negotiate a lasting peace with the Elisarans. Instead, he found himself face to face with an impossible demand. He remembered the message as he stepped onto the planet's surface. It had arrived only hours before through diplomatic channels. The terms were clear and ancient. To secure the alliance, a human must wed the youngest heir to the Elisaran throne. The note had offered no choice, no chance to refuse. As Rowan set foot on the pearlescent landing pad, he wondered how one man could carry the weight of two worlds on his shoulders. Tall spires of crystal and polished stone rose around the landing site like silent sentinels. Elegant towers curved upward, catching the sunlight and scattering rainbows across the plaza. No one spoke until Rowan's escort, an Elisaran envoy named Saren, bowed deeply and spoke in a soft, musical voice. "Welcome, Captain Vale. The Council of Light awaits. You in the Celestial Court, please follow me." Rowan nodded, tightening his jaw. He felt the eyes of dozens of observers upon him, courtiers in flowing robes of opal and silver, their expressions serious but not unkind. The entire scene felt more like a ceremony than a negotiation. Each step toward the court added to Rowan's unease. Inside the grand hall, the air shimmered with the glow of floating lanterns, each containing a dancing motes of bioluminescent energy. At the far end of the room, seated on a raised dais, sat the Council of Light. 7 elder Elisarans, their skin pale and eyes bright, regarded Rowan in silent judgment. "You have come far, Captain," said the eldest, her voice resonant as a chime. "And yet your arrival completes an ancient promise. By the Treaty of Dawning, a human soul must join with ours to bring unity and balance." Rowan swallowed. "Your Highnesses, I was prepared to discuss trade, cultural exchange, perhaps a mutual defense pact." "But not a marriage," interrupted the second elder, his voice gentle but firm. "We understand your hesitation. This bond has not been requested in ages, yet the stars have aligned once more and the Princess Lyari must take her human consort." Rowan's heart pounded so loudly he feared it would echo in the silent hall. "Princess Lyari. She is young, a child perhaps, and I—" He paused, struggling to find words that would sound both respectful and firm. "I am no prince." "A prince you need not be," said the eldest elder. "Only a partner. Stand for her, guide her, share her life." She inclined her head toward a side corridor. "She awaits you." Saren gave Rowan a reassuring nod. "I will accompany you," she said. "Do not fear. The princess is wise beyond her years." Rowan rose and followed Saren through tall archways carved with patterns that looked like constellations. He tried to steady his thoughts. He had read every report on Elisaran customs, but no briefing had prepared him for this. He felt like a scholar dropped into a storm. At the end of the corridor, they entered a secluded pavilion bathed in soft morning light. Tall windows of clear crystal looked out onto a garden of glass trees, their leaves glowing faintly like stars. In the center, seated on a low bench, was Princess Lyari. She turned as they entered. Rowan froze. Lyari was slender and small, her hair the color of moonlight, her eyes a startling violet. Her skin seemed to hold its own glow, as if lit from within. She wore a simple gown of woven light fibers that shimmered with every movement. Rowan swallowed. Again. Her face was serene, but he saw intelligence in her gaze, an awareness that belied her youth. "Captain Vale," she said, her voice soft but clear, "I have been expecting you." Saren closed the door and bowed. "I will await the council's decree in the court. Take your time, princess." She slipped away, leaving Rowan alone, with Lyari. Rowan forced himself to step forward. "Princess Lyari," he began, voice steady though his thoughts raced. It is an honor." Lyari smiled faintly. Honor or burden? She asked. Rowan blinked. The question was simple, yet he realized she spoke truth. I hope it can be honor, he said at last, for both our worlds. Liari's expression softened. She rose and approached him. This treaty is old. It was born in fear when our people trembled at the power of the Starforge. They believed only a union could calm its fury. She gestured to the garden. I have studied the histories. I know the risks, but I also know the hope this alliance can bring. Rowan watched as she knelt by a glowing tree and gently touched a leaf. The leaf pulsed brighter, sending ripples of light along its branches. See, Liari said, even these trees respond to gentle hands. We do not need force to shape our future. He watched the glowing pulse fade. You are brave. She rose and returned his gaze. And you are kind. That is what we need most. Rowan felt a warmth he could not explain. He had spent years commanding ships and negotiating treaties. He had faced pirates and deadly storms in space. Yet nothing had ever stirred him like this moment of quiet understanding. Suddenly, a soft chime sounded. Liari's courtier, a tall figure draped in robes of shifting color, entered and bowed deeply. Your Grace, the time has come. The Council awaits your pledge? Liari turned to Rowan. Shall we go together? He nodded, heart pounding with a new determination. As they walked side by side toward the court, Rowan realized that this was more than duty. It was a chance to forge, a bond that could save two civilizations. When they re-entered the celestial court, the elders rose. Liari stood next to Rowan, her presence calm and resolute. The eldest elder raised her hands and light gathered at their fingertips, forming two rings of pure crystal. Place your hands before you, human, the elder intoned. Rowan placed his palm above Liari's, and as the crystal rings descended, they clicked together in a soft, resonant tone. A beam of light arced upward, illuminating the hall, and then dissolved into countless motes that drifted like fireflies. The court was silent, every eye fixed on the glowing pair. Rowan sensed a shift in the air as if the treaty itself had awakened from a long slumber. He met Liari's gaze and saw a spark of something new, hope, perhaps, or the promise of a partnership yet to be tested. The eldest elder smiled. So it begins. Rowan's breath caught. He had pledged himself to a princess of an alien world, bound by ancient vow. But as he looked at Liari, poised and unafraid, he realized that this was not the end of his choices. It was the beginning of a journey neither of them could foresee, one that would change them both and perhaps all who lived under the light of those twin suns. Outside, the two suns rose higher in the sky. Rowan squared his shoulders and followed Liari from the hall. In that moment, he felt a thread of something stronger than duty, an opening for trust, friendship, and maybe something even more profound. Whatever lay ahead, he would face it not as an ambassador alone, but as the chosen partner of the youngest Elisaron princess. Dawn's first light filtered through the high windows of the crystal sanctum, painting the pale walls in soft gold. Captain Rowan Vale stood before the great crystal dais, still feeling the weight of the binding rings on his palm. Princess Liari joined him at the base of the dais, her violet eyes calm but bright with purpose. Around them, courtiers and elders formed a silent circle, their breath held in respectful anticipation. The eldest elder stepped forward, her robes glinting like starlight. In a clear voice, she intoned the ancient words of the vow of unity. Rowan felt each syllable vibrate through his chest, as though the very sanctum listened. He glanced at Liari, whose small hand rested against his. Together they repeated the vow in unison, promising friendship, guidance, and loyalty. When the final word fell silent, the crystal dais bloomed with light. Two clear filaments rose from the stone, twisting gently until they formed a pair of rings that hovered in mid-air. Rowan and Liari pressed their palms forward. The rings descended, clicking together around their joined hands. A soft humming filled the room, and glowing motes drifted from the walls to dance around them. As the elders bowed and the courtiers applauded in hushed tones, Rowan felt a surge of emotion. He met Liari's gaze and saw warmth there, trust that went beyond duty. When the crowd dispersed, Liari led him to a small side chamber where tea stood waiting. The tea was unlike anything Rowan had ever tasted. The leaves glowed faint blue in the crystal teapot, and the liquid that filled his cup shimmered with silver sparkles. Liari watched him sip, a smile lighting her delicate features. "This is moon petal tea," she explained. "It helps one see with both mind and heart." Rowan set down his cup. "It's alive," he said, surprised as the warmth spread through him. "It feels alive." Liari nodded. Elisarans believe that all things have spirit, even stones and water. "Would you like me to show you?" She rose and guided him through a short corridor to a grove of crystalline trees. Their trunks were clear as glass, but their leaves glimmered with soft inner light. Liari placed her hand on a branch, and the tree responded. Its leaves pulsed gently, casting dancing patterns on the floor. Rowan reached out, and the moment his fingers touched the crystal surface, he felt a ripple of energy, like the faint beating of a heart. "It's beautiful," he whispered. Liari smiled. "When I was young, I thought them just beautiful, but now I know they listen. They remember the touch of those who care." They walked deeper into the grove, talking quietly. Liari told him about her studies in the Hall of Echoes, where voices of the past could be heard if one listened with care. Rowan shared stories from Earth, of busy cities, of oceans and mountains, of people who sometimes fought but also found ways to help one another. Liari listened intently. "Your world is very different," she said softly. "Yet you speak of hope, even in hardship." Her hand found his again, and Rowan felt a calm certainty settle in his chest. After they returned to the sanctum, Liari led Rowan before a low crystal table etched with swirling glyphs. "These are records of the Treaty of Dawning," she said, tracing a symbol gently. "I wanted you to see the original words." Rowan leaned closer. The glyphs glowed faintly under his gaze. "What does this line say?" he asked, pointing. "To an inscription near the edge," Liari translated. "The union of human and starborn shall kindle the light that binds worlds." She paused. "But it does not explain how." Rowan frowned. "It sounds like they believed the marriage itself would activate something." She nodded, her lips pressed in thought. "That is why the Starforge was built, to hold and guide that power." Rowan's mind raced. He felt a mix of wonder and unease. "You trust that power will serve peace?" Liari met his eyes. "I do not know yet, but I trust us." He realized then that she was offering him more than history. She was offering a partnership built on equality and shared purpose. Rowan straightened. "Then we will learn together." They spent the afternoon exploring the sanctum's hidden libraries. Liari showed Rowan how to summon holographic maps of Elisara's ley lines, streams of energy that ran beneath the planet's surface. Rowan compared them to Earth's magnetic fields. Side by side, they traced patterns of light on the floating display, pointing out places where the lines crossed, the sites of ancient temples, of ley forges, of natural wonders. As twilight fell, they paused in the library's central dome. Liari closed her eyes and lifted her face to the crystal roof, letting the stars shine through. "When I was a child, I would stare at the heavens and wonder if any among them were like me." Rowan's voice was soft. "Did you find answers?" She opened her eyes and smiled. "Not then. But now, with you here, I feel less alone." A ripple of emotion passed through him. He thought of the wars on Earth, the countless souls lost to fear and hate. He thought of the treaty, born of fear and duty. And he thought of Liari, whose gentle spirit promised something new. He reached out and took her hand. "We will not be alone," he said. "We will face whatever comes, together." Liari's smile deepened. "Together," she agreed. In that shared moment, the weight of their bond felt lighter. The ancient vow had been sealed in crystal, but their promise was of the heart. Rowan knew the path ahead would test them in ways they could not yet imagine. Yet as he looked at Liari, so brave, so kind, he believed they could forge a future neither kingdom nor empire could foresee. As they left the sanctum and stepped into the cool evening air, Rowan kept pace with the youngest alien princess. He no longer felt like a prisoner of history. Instead, he felt like a companion on a grand journey, one that would change both their worlds, and perhaps the very stars themselves. Captain Rowan Vale stood before the towering entrance of the Starspire archives. Its walls were carved from living crystalline stone, glowing softly under Elisara's twin moons. He tightened his cloak against the cool night air and followed Princess Liari across the marble plaza. In the silence, only their footsteps echoed. Rowan felt excitement and fear mingle in his chest. He knew Liari had chosen this secret journey for a reason. Tonight they would learn the truth behind the ancient treaty, and the power it was meant to awaken. Liari led the way along a narrow ledge that skirted the spire's outer wall. She moved with quiet confidence, as though the stone itself whispered directions to her. "This entrance is hidden from most," she explained. "Only those who know the true purpose of the spire may enter." Rowan's heart raced. He and Liari had grown close in the sanctum's libraries, but they had never bent rules so openly. Yet he trusted her completely. They slipped through a camouflaged panel in the wall. Inside, a spiraling stairway of translucent crystal wound downward into darkness. Liari produced a small, luminescent orb from her robes. The orb floated before her, casting gentle light on the steps. "Be careful," she said. "These archives were never meant for casual visitors." Rowan nodded and followed her as the stairway descended into the bowels of the Starforge's heart. At the bottom, they entered a vast vault lined with rows of floating crystal panels. Each panel held holographic records of Elisara's long history. Liari guided her orb to a central dais. "This is the core archive," she whispered. "Here lies the original text of the Treaty of Dawning and its hidden warning." She touched a panel etched with an ancient symbol. Instantly, words and images shimmered into view. Rowan leaned closer. He saw images of starfires and cosmic storms, of Elisaran ancestors forging treaties beneath a great nebula. Then he read the inscription, "Should the chosen human fail in unity, the Starforge's power will consume both worlds." His breath caught. "Consume both worlds," he repeated under his breath. Liari's face was grave. "The treaty was never just a marriage," she said softly. "It was a safeguard. Our people believed that human ingenuity and Elisaran empathy together could control the Starforge. But if we fail, it becomes a weapon of destruction." She traced her finger over another panel. It showed scenes of ancient wars, cities of crystal laid to waste, skies aflame. That is why the Union was forbidden after the first failures. They feared the cost was too great. Rowan felt cold sweat on his brow. "Then the power we must guard is far more dangerous than we thought." He met Liari's violet eyes. "Why show me this now?" Liari took a steadying breath. "Because you trusted me with your world's history. Now I trust you with ours. We must decide together what to do." Her hand found his. "Our bond means nothing if we do not act on it," he nodded. "We cannot let that power fall into the wrong hands." He looked around the silent vault, imagining the chaos if those records were lost or twisted. "We need a plan." Liari's lips curved in a determined smile. "I have an idea." She led him further into the archives, where a secluded chamber held a crystalline model of the Starforge itself. The model glowed with shifting light, showing energy channels that pumped power from the nebula deep beneath Elisara's surface. Liari pressed a hidden crystal, and the model expanded into a three-dimensional projection. "Here is the key," she said. "The forge conduit. If we can learn its patterns, we can regulate its output. We can transform it from a threat into a tool." Rowan studied the web of light. "It looks alive." "Exactly." Liari's eyes shone. The elders sealed the conduit long ago. Few remember how it works. But this archive holds the sequence. We just need to decode it. Rowan felt a thrill. This was the kind of challenge he thrived on, a complex problem requiring both technical skill and emotional trust. "Where do we start?" he asked. They divided tasks. Rowan began translating the conduit sequence, using his knowledge of human ciphers. Liari cross-referenced Elysiran glyphs with her memory of childhood lessons. Outside the vault, the night deepened. The orb's light danced across the crystal walls as they worked in silence, only their whispered exchanges bridging human and alien tongues. Hours passed. Just as Rowan completed the final translation, a soft alarm sounded, a high chime that echoed through the archives. Liari's face tightened. "Someone knows we're here." She summoned the orb, which flickered nervously. Rowan reached for his communicator, but Liari shook her head. "If we signal out, we invite confrontation. We must finish quickly and leave." He agreed. With careful precision, he entered the final code into the holographic interface. The Kawi conduit sequence glowed, then faded. A low hum began vibrating through the chamber. Dust motes swirled in the luminescent air. "It's activating," Rowan whispered. Liari placed her hand on the central crystal panel. "Keep translating." Outside the vault, footsteps approached. Rowan's pulse raced. He glanced at Liari. She pressed a finger to his lips and spoke in a voice so soft he barely heard her. "Trust." He nodded and returned to the code. Moments later, the hum deepened into a steady tone. The holographic model of the Starforge shifted, revealing stable energy patterns. The power channels glowed a calm blue, no longer jagged with danger. The footsteps halted outside the chamber door. A voice called softly in the Elysiran tongue. Liari stood and deactivated the orb. "We must go," she said, her tone urgent, but controlled. Rowan gathered his notes. Together they slipped back along the stairway, leaving the activated conduit hidden once more. They emerged into the cool night air. Liari closed the hidden entrance behind them without a sound. Rowan exhaled deeply. "We did it," he said, his voice trembling with relief. "We have control." Liari smiled, though her eyes were wary. "For now. But the council must know. They cannot ignore this." Rowan nodded. "We will tell them. And we will offer a plan to guide the Starforge safely." He looked at Liari, admiring her courage and clarity. "I could not have done this without you." She reached for his hand. "And I could not have faced the truth alone." As they made their way back to the palace, Rowan thought of the warning. Failure would consume both worlds. Now that they held the key, they bore a new responsibility. Yet he felt hope stronger than fear. With Liari by his side, he believed they could reshape the future and fulfill the treaty's true promise. The greatest challenge still lay ahead, convincing the council to trust their bond and to embrace a new era of unity, born not from fear, but from shared purpose and understanding. The grand hall of the Celestial Court was silent when Captain Rowan Vale and Princess Liari entered. Steam of moon-petal tea still warmed their robes. The twin suns had set hours ago, but lanterns of bioluminescent motes glowed softly overhead. Before them, the Council of Light sat in a semicircle on crystal seats. Each elder's eyes reflected both concern and curiosity. Rowan's heart pounded. He felt the weight of every life on Elisara and on Earth, resting on their next words. Beside him, Liari's hand found his, giving him strength. He inhaled, steadied himself, and stepped forward. "Honored Council," Rowan began, his voice clear. "Princess Liari and I have uncovered the true purpose of the Starforge's conduit. It is not only a source of power, it is the heart of balance for our worlds." He paused, searching the elders' faces. "We ask your permission to activate it fully, under our joint guidance, to transform its ancient force into a beacon of hope." The eldest elder, her silver robes shimmering, leaned forward. Captain Vale, you speak boldly. Many believe that any further tampering risks disaster. Her tone held neither accusation nor welcome. Why should we trust you and the princess? Liari released Rowan's hand and rose. Great counsel, she said softly. You know the old stories. The first union failed because the conduit was used for power alone. It burned our fields and broke our bonds. But Captain Vale and I have learned from that history. She stepped closer to the dais and extended both hands. Together, we have decoded the conduit sequence. We have found a way to direct its energy gently, to heal instead of harm. One of the elders furrowed his brow. Healing? Explain. Rowan took a breath and activated the small haptic device on his belt. A holographic model of the Starforge appeared above the dais, showing glowing channels of energy beneath Elisara's surface. Observe, he said. Here are the power lines of the conduit. When uncontrolled, they surge wildly. But when guided by our sequence, he tapped codes on the device. They stabilize into a calm blue flow. The hologram shifted, showing jagged red pulses smoothing into gentle waves of light. The court murmured. Even the eldest elder's eyes gleamed with interest. Liari spoke. We tested this in secret. In the archives, we activated the conduit for a moment. The energy we released healed a dying grove of crystal trees. Within minutes, wilted branches glowed anew. She smiled. Imagine what it could do on a larger scale, restoring damaged lands, cleaning polluted waters, strengthening our alliance with Earth by sharing its benefits. An elder with robes of emerald light stood. A noble vision, princess, but the risk remains. What if the conduit overwhelms our safeguards? He fixed his gaze on Rowan. You are human. We cannot ignore the history of human error. Rowan met the elder's eyes steadily. I am human, he agreed. I make mistakes. But I have learned that trust comes from partnership. Princess Liari and I have built that trust. We ask the council to guide us as we guide the conduit. Let us work together, Elisarans and humans as one mind in two bodies. He raised his hand toward Liari. We will not act alone. A heavy silence settled. The moon petal lanterns pulsed in the quiet. Finally, the eldest elder raised her hand, palms glowing faintly. So be it, she declared. We will grant you a trial activation, but under the eye of council to oversee every step. Relief and anticipation swept through Rowan. He bowed deeply. Thank you, your wisdom. Liari joined him in the bow, her violet eyes bright with triumph. An hour later, Rowan and Liari stood at the base of the Great Spire Forge. The council's envoy formed a ring around the activation chamber. Tall Elisaran stewards, each holding a staff keyed to the conduit sequence. Rowan's own human device was linked by crystalline cables to the central console. Liari placed her hand on the console. Remember, she said softly, we guide only, we do not force. Rowan nodded and took her other hand. Together they spoke the words of the sequence in Elisaran and human tongues. The console glowed. Energy coursed into the crystalline cables and down into the forge's heart. At first the chamber trembled with raw power. Then, under their careful modulation, the energy lines steadied into gentle currents of blue light. The forge's inner walls, once dull crystal, began to glow, reflecting soft patterns on the chamber floor. A hush fell. Even the stewards watched in awe as the forge came alive, humming a soothing resonance that filled the plaza above. Rowan felt the vibration through his boots, as if the very planet sighed in relief. Liari's eyes shone. It's beautiful, she whispered. Rowan squeezed her hand. It's working. As the forge's glow spread, sensors across Elisara recorded subtle shifts. In the glass groves, leaves brightened. In distant canyons, crystal veins glowed. Even beyond the horizon, researchers on Earth's monitoring ships noted a soft energy pulse traveling along subspace lines. Back in the chamber, the eldest elder stepped forward. The trial is successful, she announced. The conduit responds. To your joint guidance, We are witness to a new age. She turned to Rowan. Human ambassador, you have shown humility and respect, and you, Princess Layari, have shown wisdom beyond your years. She addressed the gathered stewards. Let this activation mark the beginning of the unity of light. The stewards lowered their staffs, sending waves of motes swirling around Rowan and Layari. The blue glow of the forge bathed them in gentle light. Outside, the citizens of Elisara had gathered in their thousands. They watched the spire forge's outer shell pulse with light, an unmistakable beacon that said, "Peace is possible." In that moment, Rowan felt a swell of hope so strong it brought tears to his eyes. He looked at Layari, whose smile shone like a new dawn. The next morning, the Celestial Court opened its doors to representatives from both worlds. Earth's envoy arrived by shuttle, carrying gifts of seed samples, water purifiers, and healing salves, tokens of goodwill forged by the unity of light. Elisaran ambassadors brought crystalline artworks and star-forged mementos. Rowan and Layari stood before the assembled crowd. Layari spoke first in clear, ringing tones. Today we stand united not by fear but by purpose. The Star Forge's power once threatened to divide us. Now it unites us in healing and hope. Rowan followed. Our bond is more than an ancient treaty. It is proof that two worlds different yet alike can achieve what neither could alone. Let this be the first of many steps toward shared prosperity. The crowd erupted in cheers. From the edges of the plaza, glass trees pulsed in harmony with the forge, casting ribbons of colored light across the crowd. Children laughed and danced beneath the glowing branches. Elders wept with joy. Rowan felt Layari's hand slip into his. "We did it," she said. He nodded, his voice thick with emotion. Together. In the days that followed, teams of human and Elisaran engineers worked side by side. They used the conduit sequence to heal damaged fields, to clean polluted lakes, and to power farms where food shortages had threatened. Data flowed freely between worlds, each learning from the other's strengths. Rowan spent long hours in the Yao Hall of Echoes, archiving their progress. Layari led cultural exchanges, music festivals where human drums met Elisaran chants, art exhibits blending Earth's paint with crystal dust, and classrooms where children learned each other's languages. At sunset one evening, Rowan and Layari stood on the spire's highest balcony. Below, the forge glowed a calm turquoise. "I never imagined our bond could change so much," Rowan said. Layari leaned against him. "Nor did I, but I knew, even in the archives, that together we could shape a better future." Rowan wrapped his arm around her. "Thank you for trusting me." She smiled, her violet eyes reflecting the forge's glow. "Thank you for listening." They watched the twin suns dip below the horizon, two bright globes against the violet sky. In that quiet moment, the galaxy seemed at peace. Rowan believed that whatever challenges remained, political strife, natural disasters, the unknown dangers of the stars, they would face them side by side. For in their unity lay the true light, the promise of hope born from understanding, respect, and shared courage. And so, with the forge's gentle hum as their song, the human captain and the youngest alien princess stood together, partners in a new dawn for both their worlds. Morning light crept over the glass spires of the Celestial Court as Captain Rowan Vale and Princess Layari walked side by side down the marble steps. The plaza was quiet now, but the memory of last night's celebration lingered in the air. Soft, music from human flutes mingled with Elisaran crystal chimes. Above them, the spire forge glowed a gentle teal, its energy lines still guided by the conduit sequence. Rowan paused to breathe in the cool air. He felt a calm satisfaction after days of hard work. Together, he and Layari had shown two civilizations what unity could achieve. But today's duties called. They would travel to Earth as joint envoys, to share the conduit sequence and begin a new chapter of cooperation. Layari slipped her hand into his. "Are you ready?" she asked, her voice warm but steady. He smiled. "As ready as I'll ever be." They crossed the plaza, where human engineers loaded crates of seed samples and medical pods onto an open transport. Elisaran stewards, their robes glowing softly, secured crystalline power cells. Every crate and cell represented hope. Hope for fertile lands, hope for clean water, hope for healing. An assembly of Elisaran citizens gathered to see them off. Children waved small banners of blue and silver. Elders offered blessings in whispering tones. Rowan bowed deeply. "Thank you," he said, "for your trust, your friendship, and your courage." Liari stepped forward and spoke in her native tongue. The crowd listened as her words echoed softly through the plaza. Then they cheered. Rowan lifted his voice in human speech. "We go not as conquerors, but as partners. We carry with us the light of unity. May it guide all who seek peace." The crowd's applause rose like a wave. As the transport's engines purred to life, Rowan felt the thrill of a new journey. He squeezed Liari's hand and stepped aboard. The journey to Earth passed through silent space. Rowan reviewed data with Elisaran engineers, while Liari studied human cultural reports. For both of them, the trip was a time of reflection. They spoke of the gardens that would bloom back home, of the people who would benefit from the Forge's gentle power. One evening, as stars glimmered beyond the transport's wide viewport, Liari asked, "Do you ever miss Earth?" Rowan looked at her and nodded. "I miss the green fields and the sound of rain, but I do not miss the fear that drove us apart." He paused. "Now I have two homes." Liari smiled. "And I have a companion in both." She reached for his hand. "Thank you for showing me your world so kindly." Rowan touched her cheek. "And thank you for showing me how to see my own world with new hope." Their bond had grown stronger on Elisara, tempered by shared trials and discoveries. Now, that same bond would guide them as they took the conduit sequence to Earth. When they arrived in Earth orbit, they were greeted by a flotilla of human ships. Flags of Earth's nations fluttered alongside the blue and silver banners of Elisara. Rowan and Liari stood together on the observation deck, looking down at a planet of blue oceans and green continents. A voice crackled over the comm. "Welcome, Captain Vale, Princess Liari. Earth awaits your message." Liari took a steadying breath. "We bring the gift of the Forge's guided power," she said, her voice clear. "With this we can heal our worlds together." Below, an immense crowd had gathered in the Tokyo Peace Plaza. Humans of every nation stood alongside Elisaran, visitors. When Rowan and Liari appeared on the large holoscreen, applause and cheers filled the air. Rowan began in his deep, calm tone. "People of Earth and friends from Elisara, today marks a new era. We have learned that true strength lies not in weapons but in compassion and cooperation." Liari stepped forward. "The conduit sequence will help restore damaged lands, cleanse polluted waters, and provide clean energy. But its greatest power is symbolic, the power of two worlds learning from each other." As they spoke, engineers on the ground activated a scaled-down Forge model. A beam of soft light arced into the sky, illuminating the horizon. The crowd gasped in awe. Children pointed, eyes wide with wonder. Elders wept with relief. When the IZ beam faded, Rowan and Liari exchanged a satisfied glance. They had proven the Forge's promise. In the weeks that followed, joint Earth Elisara teams sprang into action. In the African plains, the Forge's guided energy revived parched fields. In flooded delta regions, it drained stagnant waters and purified them for drinking. In polluted, industrial zones, it neutralized toxic waste. Every success was a testament to the unity of light. Rowan traveled from continent to continent, overseeing projects. Liari joined him when she could, teaching Earth's children about Elisaran culture. They planted a crystal sapling in Central Park, its leaves glowing softly at dusk, a living symbol of their alliance. Back on Elisara, news hubs buzzed with stories of Earth's recovery. The glass groves that had wilted under neglect now flourished. The twin suns of Elisara rose over vibrant fields and sparkling lakes. Everywhere people spoke of the human ambassador and the youngest princess who had changed history. One evening after a long day of work, Rowan and Liari walked through the restored grove near the Spire Forge. The air was warm with the scent of star blossoms. They paused by a pool of crystalline water, its surface rippling under moonlight. Liari knelt by the edge and touched the water. It pulsed with gentle energy. "Look how it responds," she said. "All life here is brighter." Rowan sat beside her. "Yes, and all life on Earth feels brighter too." She looked at him, her violet eyes soft. "Do you ever fear what will come next?" Rowan thought of the ancient warning etched in the archives. Failure would consume both worlds. He met her gaze. "I trust in what we have built. Together. No matter what comes, we will face it as partners." Liari smiled and leaned her head on his shoulder. "Together," she whispered. They sat in quiet contentment, listening to the soft hum of the forge in the distance. The path ahead would have new challenges: political debates, technical hurdles, the unknown of the cosmos. But they knew they would not face those alone. At dawn the next day, Rowan and Liari stood before the combined Council of Earth and Elisara. Delegates from both worlds filled the grand chamber: scientists, politicians, artists, farmers, and elders. The leaders of Earth's nations sat beside the Council of Light. Together, they would write the Charter of Unity. Liari opened the session. "We come here not as conquerors, but as friends. The conduit sequence has shown that two different peoples, when united, can achieve miracles." Rowan continued. "Let this charter be our guide. Let it remind us that trust and cooperation are stronger than fear and suspicion." For hours, they debated articles that enshrined joint governance of the forge, equal sharing of knowledge, and cultural exchange programs. Every voice mattered. When they voted, the charter passed unanimously. Elizaran stewards rang crystal bells in celebration. Earth delegates released white doves in the chamber's open sky dome. Rowan and Liari clasped hands, tears in their eyes. As the first full week of the charter began, Rowan and Liari returned to the Spire Forge balcony. The forge's glow had shifted to a steady emerald, reflecting the unity of their two worlds. They watched the sunrise, two suns rising together, one bright gold, the other soft lavender. Liari rested her head on Rowan's shoulder. "We have done well." Rowan kissed her hair. "We have done more than that. We have changed history." She smiled. "But our story is just beginning." He nodded. "Yes, together we will face tomorrow's challenges." And there, on the balcony of the Star Spire, the human captain and the youngest alien princess stood as true partners. Their union, once forced by an ancient treaty, had become a symbol of hope for all. In their hands lay the future of two worlds, and they would shape it with compassion, courage, and unity of light.